I wanted to ask some general budget issues and questions in relation to ABC funding. I know, of course, we're going to have the ABC up later today, but I want... Hello. Obviously, the triennial funding agreement runs out at the end of this financial year coming. So I'm just wondering, can we have an update as to where the negotiations are up to and when we will expect to see them completed?
Senator, it would be my expectation that the finalisation of the agreement on the next triennium would be through the next budget process.
So we won't hear anything until next May. Is that what you're saying?
The government may make a choice to make an announcement before then, but it would be locked in the budget before the next financial year.
So we might go to an election with no promise from the government as to what the level of funding of the ABC.
I can't speculate as to whether the government might make an announcement in advance of that or not.
Where are the negotiations up to? Have you consulted with the ABC yet? Have you received submissions? What's been done so far? I mean, this is always an important process. I'd like to know what level of work has been put into it so far.
Mr. Windy, would you like to make any comments on where it's up to?
Yeah, Senator. Look, I think on our side, we're at the early stages of planning for how we might the sorts of things we want to understand and getting ready to engage with the ABC on what might be what might come forward for consideration. I can't speak for where the ABC, where they're at in their thinking, but certainly we're not yet at the stage of having received any submissions or had any detailed engagement with the ABC about what they're proposing and how we might consider it. So we're in the planning, the sort of planning and preparatory stages for this over the course of this year, leading into the budget process, engaging around the triennium, but we're not yet at the submission stages, and I'm just not sure where the ABC's at in their internal work either.
Mm-hmm. Is the department going to be looking at the extra pressure on the ABC from their coverage on the bushfires and the incredible amount of community education they've done in relation to COVID? We've heard from the ABC previously about the extra, they went above and beyond what their remit was, and I think Australians are thankful for that. I imagine the government is supportive of that. Will there be a way of analysing that? One, how much that costs. B, two, how we can make sure that the public broadcaster is supported in doing that going forward.
I would anticipate that we would be having a conversation about the full suite of activities and services that the ABC provides as part of that consideration.
Has the department done any work, or have you asked for any specific figures from the ABC in relation to how much their COVID coverage has cost them in terms of staff hours and any monetary value?
As Mr. Windy said, I expect that would be part of the discussion process going over in coming months.
Okay. Has there been any directions given to the department from the minister in relation to the parameters of what the negotiation should look like, what should be included in a review of the funding arrangement?
Not to me, Senator.
No, Senator.
Has the minister been engaged at all on this issue as yet?
I think we're at the point where we're discussing making sure that we have a pathway to bring forward consideration of the triennium.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, if this is going to be negotiated and decided over the next well, 10 months, I guess, is what you're saying, really, if we're nearly in June. Has there been any discussion or any decision by the government, perhaps this is a question better for the Minister actually, to ensure that there's no conflict of interest with regards to Ministers' decisions on the funding from Mr Porter's perspective?
I'll have to take that on notice.
Are you aware, Minister, as to whether there's been any direction from the Prime Minister to make sure Mr Porter is recused from any decision-making process?
I can't confirm that, so I'll have to take it on notice.
Okay, it'd be good. We're here all day, so it'd be good if we could get an answer to that today.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Obviously, when we were debating and discussing the media bargaining code, the Minister Fletcher made the public comments, and it was reiterated in this committee, I think by yourself, Mr Atkinson, that any deal struck by the ABC and SBS with Google or Facebook would not result in a reduction of funding. How are you making sure that happens? How are you keeping a check on that?
I can't remember precisely what I said at that point, but I might ask Ms Sullivan to comment on how that goes.
Oh, well, as you said, Senator Pauline Sullivan, First Assistant Secretary of Content, as the Minister has said on a number of occasions and has been reiterated in this committee, he has said that the ABC's funding would not be reduced by the amount of any deal done through the bargaining code. I would anticipate as part of the triennium process that would be one of the considerations that is on the table, or not on the table, but would form part of the discussions in terms of the triennium. So I would see that as one of the parameters that you talked about earlier.
Okay. So effectively that we've got a floor now for ABC funding. Whatever they are able to negotiate with Facebook and Google will be in addition.
I would say that's certainly for the current triennium.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's a matter for government. But the Minister has made those statements on several occasions.
Because the appropriations are laid out as they are for the next 2 years, or for this year.
There was no changes in the budget in relation to the enhanced news gathering fund. And when I say no changes, I mean no extension. So it looks like a cliff, which, you know, one person's cliff is another person's cut. Where is that up to? Is that going to remain as a cliff, or will...
So it's my anticipation that that would be considered as part of that. It's as part of the triennium discussion.
So we won't have any update to that until this time next year?
Well, once again, I can't anticipate when the government might make a decision or make an announcement.
Okay. I'm concerned about that particular bucket of money because the impact that has right now on news services, particularly in rural and regional areas and smaller metropolitan areas like Adelaide, local bulletins, online, local news services. And if the ABC is not given some indication that that money is going to be extended, they are going to have to start cutting staff, I imagine. I'm sure the ABC I'll put these questions to them this afternoon as well. I'm a bit concerned that if the attitude from the government is that that's all part of the next round of overall funding, that actually we're going to see local news services suffer.
If I may just add on that, Senator Hanson-Young, the ABC is also, as part of Minister Fletcher being very supportive of maintaining the any deal done through the bargaining code, the ABC is also committed to reinvesting those funds into local and regional news services. So I realise that's a separate issue to a terminating program, but I think it's also worth noting that that is the ABC's intention as well.
Yes, of course, and good on them for committing to that. But that doesn't absolve the government's responsibility for funding this program. And I would like to see a bit more urgency in relation to getting a commitment from the government on that. I don't think we can wait 6 months, let alone 10. Obviously, the program has been in existence for 8 years already, and if it is not the government's intention to extend it, then we should have that. The minister should be clear, and perhaps, Minister, there's a question on notice, but just rolling it into the rest of the negotiation rings alarm bells for many of us, I think. The government needs to be clear about whether you intend to extend it or not.
Is that a question on notice?
Yes.
So,
unless you can answer it now, which would be helpful.
I can tell you that the government will make a decision on whether to extend the enhanced news measure or any other changes to funding in the lead up to the budget in 2022.
So again, we're possibility of going to an election without knowing what the government's commitment is to this program, and that's pretty diabolical. Do you really want to be facing an election, Minister, without a commitment to the Australian people that you're going to fund the ABC properly?
I think we'll make an announcement about that in the budget in 2022.
Could I ask, in relation to the rest of the media bargaining code, does the department have an update as to what has been arranged? Yes. Lots of folders.
There's lots of folders in a small person.
I see Senator Pratt. Is that your trolley over there, Senator Pratt? You might need to invest in a...
Yeah, I've got one.
Oh, okay.
I just don't have someone to pull everything up for me. Yes, in terms of, and I assume the update that you're after is how many organisations have done deals.
Yes, please.
So in terms of deals with Google, the latest update, to the best of our knowledge, is there's been 12 news organisations that have done deals with Google and 7 with Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to run through the list.
If you could, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
So in terms of Google Showcase deals, I should add that this is based on deals and letters of intent for payment for news content. Most announcements haven't contained remuneration and so forth, but
yes.
I will run through them. So, and then obviously, sorry, just one other caveat before I get started. There's obviously a range of publications within each of these organisations, which I won't.
No,
I'm
that's
happy
fine.
to provide you on notice.
On notice, that would be helpful,
Sure.
but for the sake of this
So
morning.
in terms of the organisations for Google, it is News Corp, 7 West Media, Junkie Media, 9 Entertainment, ACM, Australian Community Media, Schwartz Media, The Conversation, Industry Super Holdings, Solstice Media, Private Media, The Guardian and Times News Group. That's Google. Mm-hmm. And for Facebook, number of crossovers, 7 West Media, News Corp, 9 Entertainment, Private Media, Schwartz Media, Solstice Media and ACM.
Mm-hmm. Does the department have a understanding of the total amount of money that these deals so far have consisted of?
No. So we have no visibility of remuneration.
Okay. At some point, will you be able to access or have that conversation with Facebook and Google as to how much they're outlaying? And surely that needs to be an important part of a decision as to whether to use the determination clauses, surely.
They are commercial deals, so not clear whether we will be able to access that information. It's probably also in terms of decisions about what to do with the code are also being led by Treasury, who are and Treasury and the ACCC, who are closely engaging, in particular around those issues about whether you may designate or so forth.
So, final question, Chair. So, will the ACCC have visibility in relation to total money negotiated, or?
I would like to take that on notice.
Yes, okay, if you could.
Yes.
Thank you.
That really is one for the ACCC, but I'm happy to find
absolutely,
out
but I think it's an important. I don't care about the individual amount.
Sure.
What I care about is
aggregate.
Yeah, exactly.
They have information powers we don't.
Yeah,
so
that we
that's-
don't have.
Thank
I was just going to add, Senator, I think in a way, in terms of your point about the exercising the determination, obviously the ACCC will need to be, will attempt to access what information it can, but just as important as the aggregate in a way for us is the range and number of people they do deal with. You know,
And the diversity.
Correct. One big, a big number with only a small number of news players in it is possibly not, is interesting, but a big number with a lot of deals is perhaps more interesting.
Yes.
So the number of deals and the number of people that are in constructive, good faith negotiations with Google and Facebook, I think at this point is the more, the sort of important piece. We've run through where we're at now and we understand negotiations continue.
Thank you. I actually think that's a really important point to make, because the diversity, the range of voices is what we're trying to protect here in terms of public interest journalism, not just one big cheque for one big player or a small handful.
Senator
Thank you.
Hanson-Young. Senator